do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
G'day, beautiful people. How are you this very fine Tuesday evening? It seems like the connection gods have come back to join us again. I don't know what it is about Mondays, but I've seemed to have all hell's trouble connecting on a Monday for whatever reason. I had a pretty reasonable show lined up last night too, if I say so myself. You'll see some of that tonight, but obviously the big news is the release of Julian Assange. And what huge news it is comes right out of left field. Unless, of course, you remember a chat we had with WikiChick a while back where she projected that he would be out in June. In fact, she, from memory, even said late June. What could be going on? What could be going on? And there are so many interesting things going on in the chat, so many interesting comments that I've been reading for the last half an hour or so, lining things up here for tonight. Paul Revere first in tonight, mate, and you were banned last week for swearing. I think Sunflower sorted that out. There is a button, or there is a sensor. If it reads swear words, it blocks you. So if you're typing in, those words, then there's probably a chance you do get kicked for 5 minutes or something like that, which is a funny. I did like your question. What was the second tallest mountain in the world? K2 is the answer. I didn't need to get it from anybody else. I just wasn't fast enough to type it up. I think I saw the question about 10 minutes after you typed it. But I actually know 4 people who've climbed K2, and 2 of those have gone on to climb Everest, one of those twice. So interesting folks, hoping to catch up with, well, at least one of them. Maybe both. I think they're both still in the same town. There's a male and a female who aren't together as such, but they are mountaineers, if that's the way you would describe them. So hopeful of catching up with them at some stage while we're traveling around the countryside and I happen to be close to them. That would be great. Julian Assange could be coming. Yeah, God help us if he comes back to Swaziland and Australia. Yeah, we'll talk about that shortly. Sunflower, thank you for everything that you do for us here. You are holding our community. Well, I don't know that you hold it together exactly, but you do keep it a wonderful community. And there's a great bunch of people in here all up for a chat. It's a wonderful little family that we've got here. J1, congratulations on your 3 months clean of Big Pharma. I'm not sure if you're using the X39 to help you with that or not, the X39 patches, as my friend Carol is, but that's cleared her too, pretty much of all of the opioids in her life. And that's been an amazing thing for her. She's been 34 years in pain. So if you don't know much about the X39 patches, and this is the first time you're hearing about them, you can get them here at that little address that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I would encourage you to give it a try if you are in pain or you have difficulties with joint pain, inflammation, that kind of thing. In my particular instance, I am not particularly debilitated on a regular basis. I do get lower back pain. I broke my L1 vertebra some years ago filming a TV commercial for Humminbird Fish Finders. I was 22 mile off the coast of Caloundra at the time. It wasn't a lot of fun. So I get a bit of pain around there, and I get pain in the lower lumbar. And some years ago, I had a lot of years ago, I had a roller door that was rolled up. I was on a motorbike riding out to go to work, and the whole thing pulled out of the wall and landed dead square top of my head as I was riding under it. It squashed me down into the seat, busted a whole heap of vertebra in the back of my neck, or turned it into little marbles, is what they call it, and did some damage in my thoracic and all sorts of stuff. A lot of fun. So that's the sort of pain I get on and off, depending on what I do with my head and neck and shoulders and all that. And these X39 patches fix me, cure me for like I don't need to wear them daily now. And I think if I had to say the biggest change that I've felt from the X39 patches is my ability to kneel. I have no ability, or had no ability, to kneel for years. I mean, absolute years. I've had knee operations. I've had dislocated both knees. Well, one knee I've dislocated over 100 times. The other one I've probably come close to 100 times on. I just put them back in myself now when they pop out. So it helps me with that tremendously. I was kneeling today, trying to get some idea of the rubber that we need to replace after the LPG backfire a few months back. Turns out I might be able to get the appropriate bit of rubber, but it's going to have to come from America if they can supply it, and it's not cheap, but fingers crossed we'll get it. So that'll be one thing fixed. We might even get the LPG going on the old girl again. I would be amazed and very, very impressed about that. There were a few other chats that I highlighted in here tonight. J1, I liked what you said here. The Assange coming back to Australia should shake up the Nazi parties. I'm glad you put in duopoly. You are 100% right. It doesn't really matter what side of the house you prefer to support. They're one bird, two wings. So that's changing. And as Paul pointed out, it's changing big time in England at the moment. Nigel Farage is powering ahead in the polls, if you can believe the polls. And Rishi Sunak should be out on his ass very shortly, the election coming up pretty soon. Yes, Jack, definitely free. Now, from my understanding, he is on his way to, probably there by now, to an island very close to Guam. It's an American protectorate. And of course, as a protectorate, it will be under US law. He has the agreement that has been reached to be sentenced, and then he will be free to go. Now, the deal that's been reached on Julian Assange is essentially to free him under time served, which is 62 months. He has been in Belmarsh prison. Prior to that, he was 9 years in the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy. So all up, it has been an ordeal of 14, 15 years. No charges have ever been proven against him, particularly the rape charges that came out of, was it Sweden, I think, 10, 12 years ago. None of those came to fruition. They were never proven, never upheld in a court, at least not in any real court. And I guess common sense has come to fray. Now, Albanese has come out and said, oh, yes, we've always consistently said, he should come home. It doesn't serve anything to send him to America. Well, Albo's just parroting, and have no doubt they will be clambering all over this as a win for their politics. They got him out. However, I think we should take a very close look at, I think it was Senator Antic, who recently was in America. If it wasn't Senator Antic, it may have been Senator Canavan. Recently in America, wound up speaking with, well, both administrations, let's say, the Biden administration, and had an audience with Trump at some point. Julian Assange was a large topic of discussion. And, of course, our senators were pushing for his release back to Australia. Now, could they have had much to do with it? I just think it's ongoing. But I want you to have a look at this. You've probably already seen it, but it's been the only footage of Julian Assange that anybody's seen in the last 5 years. So it's been running all day. I stole this off Sky News, so thank you to them for this. Look close. So watch closely. This is him at Stansted Airport. And that's him walking to the plane. Now, that's all you get. All right, but let's have another look. So on the highway, they're heading along. Now, oh, I can't pause it. Bugger. How do I do that? I won't do it. I want you to have another look. Have a look at his jowls. As he's walking out to the plane, have a look at his pretty healthy little gut. Now, I'm not saying that he's overweight or particularly unfit. What I am saying is he doesn't look like a man who spent 5 years in the deepest, darkest hole the UK can provide. So, traveling along, look at those jowls. Look at that chin. Look at the nose. Look at that little belly. It's a muffin top. I guess that's what you'd call it, a muffin top. Would you call it that? Would you develop a muffin top if you were living in a cell 3 meters by 2 meters in darkness for 23 hours a day? I heard a report today from the UK, and only allowed to see sunlight 1 hour a day. I can't imagine he was being fed, top of the line cuisine if he's being kept in that sort of situation. How do you develop? Or maybe he's actually malnourished, and what we're seeing is that Biafran look. Who knows? At any rate, I think once he has signed the documentation on this small island near Guam, I'd be nervous too. He will be on a plane back to Australia. Where he lands will be of some interest. I suspect it will be Sydney. Interestingly, I suspect he will arrive in Sydney about the same time that Tucker Carlson does. Now, I was lucky enough to go to Tucker Carlson, Clive Palmer's Freedom Conference on Saturday night in Brisbane. From there, it progressed to, I think, Adelaide. It was Cairns Friday night, Brisbane Saturday night, Adelaide Sunday night. Monday night, I think it was Perth, and, or maybe, yes, I think it was Perth. Canberra for lunch today, where Tucker Carlson appeared, but Clive didn't. And then they're off to Sydney Friday for their big event there, and then Melbourne the following Monday. That leaves a good deal of time for Tucker Carlson to get that interview. And I suspect that's exactly what's going to happen. People will now say, oh, well, Tucker didn't come out here for Clive. He came out here for the interview. Well, I wouldn't be too surprised to hear that Clive actually supplies the private plane to fly him back here. Wouldn't be too surprised. It won't be that one that he got on, or I doubt it'll be that one that he got on. But if they want to take ownership of this, then they will fly him back here on an Australian government aircraft. If he comes in on a private jet, that's a whole different story. And I suspect it will be a different jet. Now, we're getting very excited at the fact that Julian Assange has been released. But if you're a Twitter follower, you may or may not have heard of a guy called Vincent Kennedy. Now, Vincent Kennedy, for the want of a better term, is a Q proponent. He follows Q deeply, and some of the things that he has posted over the last few years have been extremely accurate. Now, Vincent Kennedy posted a tweet today that said, along the lines of, congratulations, welcome home, John Trump Jr., the traveller. Okay, what does that mean? Well, I'm sure those of you who have been following me for a while and others will know that if you put up a picture of Donald Trump's uncle, John Trump Sr., and a picture of Julian Assange side by side, they are practically identical. John Shipcott is nominated father. They don't look dissimilar, I've got to say. I mean, you can see similarities between the two of them as well. However, the likeness between John Trump Sr. and Julian Assange is staggering. Go and check it out yourself. The note, The Traveller, is also interesting. Have you been to the Ingersoll and Lockwood webpage? Do you know what Ingersoll and Lockwood is? Well, there's a little rabbit hole for you to go and follow if you don't know that. And there is in their entire site. And I am talking hidden buttons, hidden avenues into new information. Some of them are a pixel in size. Okay? You've got to know where to put your mouse and click. Or you've got to know how to run your mouse over every pixel in a screen and see what your mouse does when it gets to a certain pixel. This is part of the rabbit hole. This is part of what will help you learn. There is a lot of information that you don't have to dig too deeply to try and find available on that website. And you might avail yourself of their library. Download a couple of the books that are in there. Printed back in the 1800s. I particularly like the Baron Trump and his journey to the center of the earth. A very interesting tale indeed. All about time travel. Project Looking Glass, anyone? I know some of you are thinking it. Me too. I dare not hope too much, but it is what it is. So that is the exciting news about Julian Assange. And I do predict that Tucker Carlson will grab that interview, quite possibly in Sydney, could possibly be outside of Australia, I guess, after this. But given the access that Tucker Carlson has to the Trump administration, given his location at the moment, or locale, at least being in the same hemisphere, and in the lower quarter of that hemisphere as it happens, I think there's every chance we're going to see that in the very near future. If you aren't a member of the Tucker Carlson network, then please join. And while you're doing it, if you're in a joining mood, come and join VOF as well. We'd love to have you as a member at vofhq.com. It would be fabulous to have you. And when you mention us, when you go to Ainsley, you will get a small discount. Now, I was speaking to some people who have said, "Oh, look, I mentioned you, or I bought online, and didn't see anywhere I could come in." So, guess what? I'm going to show you how to do it. It's very important that if you do want to buy online, and I'm going to go through the process here and show you exactly what to do. We're going to buy well, we're not going to buy it because I haven't got $51.12 to spend on it, but we're going to go through the process of buying one of the Ainsley rounds. Now, this is one of the 1 ounce coins, and at the moment it's valued at $51.12. You can see I've already added it to my cart up here. So let's go to the cart. So it tells me that I'm getting one ounce Ainsley minted silver round, and the cost is $52.32. Now, this will stay valid if you're umming and ahhing. Maybe you want to buy more than one, maybe you want to buy two. This price stays current for a certain period. Right now, I think it'll probably stay current all overnight, but during the day, it updates every minute or so. So it's a very, very, very accurate pricing structure. So then we go into this part, which I'm not going to share with you because it drops in every part of my information, which none of you all need to see. But once you fill in all your details there and hit continue, I can bring it back up now, I think. Yeah, it says hold my order and I will collect it. So that's if I want to go in. If you want to put it in a storage account, if you want to get it sent to you, you just tick whichever box is appropriate. So I'm going to go into Creek Street, into their Brisbane office on level 6, and pick it up from Michael directly. Oh, I missed the most important part. Here in your order options, where it says, whatever you're going to do, deliver my order to a post office box, deliver my order fully insured, send my order to a secure vault, yada, yada, yada. Down underneath all this, pickup location, you'll see referral code. Don't put anything in that. Go to the notes section and type VOF like that. Now, I'm just going to put test there so Michael knows that I'm not actually buying it and he doesn't have to charge me through it. And then you hit continue. What happens if you don't put that VOF test, or that VOF in there, don't put test. If you don't put VOF in the notes section, then you are not going to get the discount. They don't know that you've come from Voice of Freedom. Now, it's important from a Voice of Freedom perspective that you do this, because right now it's coming up to the end of the financial year. And Ainsley, I'm sure, are doing their numbers and finding out how many people from the Voice of Freedom have gone their way and whether or not there is much return on their investment, if any, and will they continue to help fund what we do going forward. So without you putting in VOF in that notes section down the bottom there, in the order options section, so before you actually get to the credit card payment, all that sort of thing, you must put in that VOF, or you can type in Voice of Freedom, or you can put Carl, whatever you want to put in there, but just put something in there that identifies you as a Voice of Freedom follower or a friend of mine, or whatever you want to put it. Once you do that, and I'll just put test back in there because I deleted it, you just hit continue and audio confirmation, send me an invoice, yada, yada, yada. And by yes, I confirm that I'm into a binding contract with Ainsley. That's all great. Please wait. It's probably going to reject. If it's got a card on file, it's probably going to reject it because I doubt there's any money in it. Anyway, that's how it works. Okay. So once you do that and you put that VOF in the notes section, you will get your discount. Now, apologies to those who haven't done that previously, who have tried and got a vague look. If you do go into Ainsley and you mention Voice of Freedom, that's the other way to do it. If you're going in face-to-face, you must say, hey, Carl sent me, or Voice of Freedom, or just mention it. And all of their sales team have been appraised. I've met most of them, have been appraised of who I am and what Voice of Freedom is, and they should be expecting you. And as soon as you and your file is identified once as a Voice of Freedom follower, it stays on your file. So every purchase you make from then on will automatically get that discount. Now, I think Vince and I were talking about this yesterday, and I think he did the exercise. The saving on a 1 ounce coin is about 24 cents. Okay, so it's not a huge amount of money, but Ainsley don't make their money by selling the coins. Okay, that's not how any bullion dealer makes money, by selling or dealing in bullion. They make money when it comes back to them. Okay, and you can't begrudge them making a little bit of money out of what they do. We all have to do it, and it is a little bit of money by comparison to what they're trading. So I wouldn't get too nose out of joint about that. And if you've got to sell it, you've got to sell it. It doesn't matter who you take it to; they're all going to charge you for it. So what you need to look at is trying to get the best price you can, and I'm sure that Ainsley will get the best price because, I keep hearing that that's the case, and I've got to tell you, I've experienced it on more than one occasion myself, where I've had to go and sell, and they've always given the best price. So please give that a go. So that is how you need to do it. I hope you followed the notes, so to speak. But the key point is, if you're buying online, to go through and to the order options down the bottom in the notes section, put in VOF or Carl, Voice of Freedom, whatever. As long as you're identified as me or Voice of Freedom, then that discount will come straight to you. And I won't get any more phone calls from people saying, oh, I'm not really worried about it, but so all good. I had a great talk with Michael about that yesterday. Speaking of that, also spoke about the Ainsley 1/10 rounds, which are now available. These are spectacular, little, and I do mean little, round money beyond the reset. Now, I'm going to be speaking with David from Byron Bay in the near future about the Byron Bob. This is the nickname that these coins have been given, the ounce and the half ounce, and now this 1/10 of an ounce coin. You can see you can buy it there for $7.38. Unfortunately, you can't buy them one at a time. They are only sold in bundles of 40, making the price, I think it's a bit under $300. Oh, it's right there, $295. So if you are interested in those, Ainsley can sort you out online or in store with them too. And I've got to tell you that there are communities popping up all over the country using the Byron Bob and trading it. And this is particularly why I'm keen to go down and see David at Byron, because we'll visit a couple of businesses who are happy to trade. And I know that there are businesses on the Sunshine Coast now who are looking at being able to form a group that is quite happy to trade using precious metals, particularly the silvers and particularly the Byron Bob. Now, this at $7.38 is a pretty great thing. I'm going to find out from David how these coins are valued in the Byron Bay community, because it's very difficult to know, given the price of silver rises and falls and rises and falls and rises and falls, sometimes multiple times on a day. There must be some form of agreed value to what they're doing here. So I'm really looking forward to finding out the mechanic behind that and experiencing it for myself down in Byron Bay. And got to tell you, this is the only reason I could find to go to Byron Bay. But this is exciting. I'm very keen to come down and see how it works. And then when we hit the road, we will try and share that through all the communities and businesses that we go to. I think it's a great way of businesses being involved, but also potentially putting away something that could lead to a greater windfall in a very short period of time, because God knows, I think the Great Awakening is upon us, folks. Julian Assange out. Germany, right. Well, God, there has been some interesting things coming out of Germany. And well, let's start with the nuns, shall we? German nuns have been renting out orphaned boys to businessmen for gangbangs and orgies. This has been going on for a number of years. And when I say a number of years, I mean like decades and decades. Some of these boys have disappeared, never to be seen again. These nuns, a number of whom have been charged, are charged with some of the most serious child trafficking charges that can be laid in Germany. So we all know that there is some weird shit that goes down in nightclubs, and Hamburg nightclubs, and Nuremberg nightclubs, and Munich. Oh, okay. All right. There's a lot of nightclubs in Germany. A lot of weird shit goes down in them. Probably some of the weirdest stuff that's come out of Germany in the last 24 hours or so is a new report, which is in German, so I can't show you. But the report essentially explains and shows in great detail, with full disclosure, exactly how much the German government knew about the jabs, and whether they were safe or not. Their safety and efficacy was never proven, as we know. But the government, by their own paperwork now, has been shown that they bypassed, they ignored, they silenced all advice against applying lockdowns and associated other bastardry that they did to us during that time. They ignored relative safety data that on any normal person's viewing would have automatically seen jabs never introduced, but banned if they had been immediately within weeks of the rollout. We have seen mortality data now starting to pop up. Now, this is different from Germany. This is findings, I think, that have popped up out of an international forensic science conference. Now, a bit difficult to see exactly what's going on there. So this is a symptomatic or systematic review of autopsy findings in the death after COVID-19 vaccination. There were 325 autopsy cases. They found 73.9% of deaths were directly due or significantly contributed to by the cough jab. Our data suggests a high likelihood of a causal link between the spicy cough jab and death. This is a victory for science over censorship. Well, we'll see, because I suspect YouTube will probably kick None2K off the air for putting this up. Incredible perseverance, because Voice of Freedom is actually being kicked off for supposed medical misinformation. I think we're another 2 days before we get back up on that channel. Incredible perseverance by the first author, Nicholas Huschler, who didn't give up after Lancet pulled the paper within 24 hours after hundreds of thousands of downloads for no legitimate reason. Big Pharma put the squeeze on them, of course, but it failed to stop them. The paper was delayed by a year, and those actions of censorship and cancellation led to many deaths and could have been prevented. This paper could be the game changer. Well, I sincerely hope so. 74% linked. 74% of deaths linked. My God. It's going to get worse. I saw projections today that billions will die. Billions. And when you think of places like India, China, where they have billions of people, many of whom I'm sure, if they were dissenters, were forcibly jabbed. Not so much in India, but certainly in China. You can expect hundreds of millions, I think, in those countries alone. I saw some projections there saying something along the lines of, I think it was a bit over 100,000 Australians dead from this before the end of 2026. Before 2030, close to 1 million. So this isn't something that is going to necessarily knock people off the budgie perch. Well, if they have another one, I'd be careful. But whatever's in you is in you. Whatever fault it's found in your system, whatever weakness it's found to exploit, it is exploiting. And it will take its time. And depending on the level of that weakness in your body, be that respiratory, be that heart, be that circulatory system, it will just take its time, and slowly but surely you'll get crooker and crooker, wind up in hospital. Oh, here's a ventilator. Have you heard the word remdesivir? Well, we'd like to offer it to you. In fact, Clive Palmer on Saturday night told a very interesting story about his time with the spicy cough, where he had double pneumonia. Rather than the spicy cough, he had double pneumonia, was in hospital, and he was told he had less than 5 hours to live. Now, that's a pretty sobering thing to be told by two doctors standing at the foot of your bed, that you have 5 hours to live, Mr. Palmer. We need to give you a drug or you will die in 5 hours. Mr. Palmer wasn't in the bed. He was standing beside it, and there was a metal chair beside him. The two doctors said, "We need to give you remdesivir, Mr. Palmer. It'll save you." He picked up the chair. He said, "If I'm going to die in 5 hours, I'm going to spend that 5 hours with my wife. I am not going to be jabbed with that shit." And essentially fought his way out of the hospital, into the car, and went home. They were very, very prepared to jab him with remdesivir, which has had a name change, by the way. I just can't remember what it is at the moment. So, yeah, be asking about that, folks, because it is a very nasty thing, remdesivir. It'll, if you're old or older and you're having respiratory problems, at the end of you. So if you have friends and family who would be around you during that time, you tell them now, should I ever go into hospital, you never allow them to give me anything like remdesivir. or whatever its new name is, but you can ask for it as remdesivir or whatever it's called now, because I know they changed the name. So they do have to tell you. Just on the arrival of Julian Assange, I wrote a note down here about Chris Kenny tonight on Sky News. Is that his name, Chris Kenny? Anyway, he was attacking Assange about being a hero, being brought back to a hero's welcome here in Australia. He's no hero. He's a horrible journalist. He let out secrets. He did this. He did that. Hang on a minute. This bloke used to be the chief of staff for Alexander Downer. Oh. Yep, him of the fishnet stockings and private school brigade. Now, Chris Kenny is out attacking Julian Assange, saying he's no hero, he's a bloody criminal, he got what he deserved, da-da-da-da. Yes, it's glad it's over, but, you know, he shouldn't be a hero. He should be like brought back here and left to live in obscurity. Yeah, go ahead, write a book, nobody buy it. Has this fool of a human being forgotten why Assange was in so much trouble? Have you seen the helicopter footage, gunship footage that he released through WikiLeaks, and the inter-cockpit conversation between the pilot and the weapons officer as they identified a group of men standing on a street corner in Baghdad? One of those men had what the backseater, front seater, said was a rocket launcher over his shoulder. It turned out to be a 900mm telephoto lens on a camera. The men were journalists and they were in the area covering a story. However, those two pilots in their gunship couldn't resist a prime target of weaponized Iraqis in downtown Baghdad and blew the shit out of them, out of the entire place. I think there were 8 deaths in total. There was a van that turned up to try and help, to try and get people to cover, to try and get around. That van had 2 children inside it. Both the van driver and the 2 children died in the hail of gunfire rained down from above from an Apache attack helicopter. That's what he showed. That's what Americans were so angry about, because they didn't want the public to know there had been an incident where their guys, who were very blasé about killing so many people in such dramatic fashion. I mean, there's body parts everywhere in this video. Admittedly, it's monochrome vision, so you don't have to worry about blood, folks. But it's confronting vision. Now, sad, tragic accidents happen in war. However, that is no accident. That is bad training. That shows a weapons officer who doesn't know the difference between a telephoto camera lens and a weapons system. And I've seen both things up close, held both things up close. Trust me, they do not look alike at all. At all. And I would have thought any military person would, at a very easy glance, be able to tell the difference. Through a monochrome telephoto lens they're zooming in on, would be able to tell the difference. But I think there's more to that story. And that's just one of the things they're chasing him for. But that was probably one of the most deeply embarrassing. Of course, the other reason they're chasing him is for all of the Hillary Clinton emails, all of the Obama emails, all of the Podesta emails, all of the truth about that administration's corruption, coercion, and pure evil. That's why they wanted him dead. The only reason, and I saw the comment posted up by somebody before we started the show, the only reason that Assange is allowed to come home now because anymore. We've been saying for some time he's not in Belmarsh. And I mean, do you want me to play the vision again? Do you want to have another look? Do you seriously believe a man who's been kept in solitary confinement for 5 years, only seen an hour of sunlight a day in that time, comes out looking like he did? If you believe that, I've got a bridge in Sydney I'll sell you. So, yeah, watch this space. More to come there, I think. Let me turn the page. I think there's a bit more to talk about. I did find a few interesting videos. I'm not sure I can play one of them on certainly a couple of the platforms that I'm currently broadcasting on. So probably won't play that one. But if you have a mind, go and look up a video. It's an address made by Dr. Robert Young at the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the Weaponization of the Biosphere. I know that's a pretty long sort of a titled court, but this is an inquiry, not a court. I beg your pardon. It's a commission of inquiry. The Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the Weaponization of the Biosphere. This is where the climate change argument is going to come rapidly falling down around the necks of the perpetrators of what's been going on. It's some of the things that Robert speaks about in this presentation are directly going to go against the lies, bullshit, and unupdated medical misinformation practices that YouTube currently sponsor. But of course, we know that YouTube are simply one of the arms of the cabal, and they're not likely to change those terms until they're absolutely forced to, and that will be one of the last things that we have. But I think the release of Julian Assange is important because it shows, I think, the movie's nearly over. Out of nowhere, America agrees to a plea deal. Out of nowhere. Yep, let him come out after time served. No worries at all. Let him go home to Australia. Yep, okay. Got to be signed in American law. All right, we'll do that on the island, which is 2/3 of the way back to Australia. And you've got to stop and get fuel anyway. So nice place to stop and refuel. We're a little American protectorate. We'll sign all up. You get home. That's a biggie. Building companies, big building companies, particularly in China, falling over all over the place. Of course, we know Evergrande went down a couple of months ago, and the ongoing ramifications of that are still being felt across various global markets. There are funds that I read over the weekend in the US, retirement funds, who are, in one case, $666 million short of the pension fund arrangement they are managing. $666 million short. I hope that you don't know anybody who's got their money tied up in that pension fund. And a lot of Americans have chosen to do what a lot of Australians are doing, and that's to get the hell out of super or 401ks in America and put your money into gold and silver. And at the moment, pretty good price to buy. Spot price at the moment is sitting at $44.38 for silver, and spot price for an ounce of gold is $3,501.31. So if you're lucky enough to have that sort of cash around, maybe you've sold an investment property, sold a car, maybe you picked up lotto last weekend or had a bit of a windfall at the ponies. Whatever it is, don't blow it. Don't waste it. And for God's sake, don't put it in a bank. Just don't put it in a bank. Because one day you're going to go to that bank. You're going to have the same experience that some folks had recently in, was it Cuba? Where all their money wasn't there anymore. It was the government. Instead, there was an IOU from the government saying, we'll give it back to you when we can. So silver and gold. And if you can, head into Ainslie. I'm popping in there tomorrow only because I've got to see Michael about something else on our list of things we've got to get done. But I'm going to pop in there tomorrow and catch up with the team, say hi, wave the flag. So if you happen to be popping into Ainslie tomorrow, maybe we'll catch up. My plan is to be in there a bit just after lunchtime, maybe. So if you're going to be around, I'll see you there. I would encourage you to go and check out one of the rounds, either the 1 ounce or the 1/10 ounce or even the ½ ounce. I mean, you don't want to go paying for everybody's breakfast with 1/10 of an ounce silver coins because, you know, you got to carry a lot of them around. ½ ounce, well, that works out pretty well. And what's the full ounce worth? A bit over $50. So, you know, a couple of ½ ounce coins or a 1 ounce coin might get you breakfast at your local pay for 2. That'd be pretty fair, wouldn't it? $25 a brekkie, coffee and a croissant or something like that. So I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been able to go out and have breakfast somewhere, but I'm imagining that that's probably what it costs these days. If you're going out to a reasonable cafe and you're going to get coffees, maybe 1 or 2. So anyway, great opportunity to go and see if your community, if you're a business and you're maybe interested in exploring this option, get in touch, carl@vofhq.com. I will hook you up with the right people when it comes to figuring out how this system works, and maybe we can get it going in your area. I'd love to come to town and help spend a coin or 2 in your area. So what area would you like me to come to? It's that simple. Yeah, very keen to see what we can do with this. I think it's a very exciting proposition for people who are looking for some security in their savings, in their plastic money. Get out of that, get out of the system. And there are businesses clearly very open to trading in it. So open the door. I know that there are folks in far north Queensland, Mareeba, Ingham, Cairns, Cooktown, interested in looking at how this system works and how it could be employed in their area too. And I know certainly in far north Queensland, in the Palmer area, and probably further afield, there is already, I guess, a gold trading option going on, but it's not done in coins. It's done pure gold straight out of the ground. So, you know, it comes out of the Palmer River gold mines. So that, you know, is something that's happening, you know, every day during the mining season, at least in far north Queensland, when the miners have got to come out and pay for something, whether it's a large amount of diesel or spare parts or whatever the hell they need. They quite often walk out and pay for it with bags of gold. So it's working. The system always has worked. Gold and silver are the oldest forms of currency. So, well, oldest forms of valuable currency. Of course, the oldest currency is a Roman thing with Caesar's head on it. But if you can find one of those, well, it's worth a bit more than a 1/10 round from Ainslie. I'll give you the drum. But yeah, go and check out those Ainslie rounds. I think that would be pretty cool. I want to share something else with you now. I came across a petition today, and I've posted it up in the chat. I'll grab it and post it in the chat again if it's something that you might be interested in checking out and possibly signing. I'm interested to learn what your thoughts are about the legalization of nuclear power in Australia. Peter Dutton, of course, has come out and proposed a number of sites around the country, and I'm just posting the link to this petition in the chat now. Dutton has come out and proposed a number of sites around the country where nuclear power generation sites would be built. Here, I say. Probably not enough of them. All of the squealers, the climate criers, the nuclear clowns that come out and tell you all the lies and deception about nuclear power plants have, of course, raised their heads in recent times, and I think are finding their arguments being kicked back by logic and fact. Today, a nuclear power plant is not the nuclear power plant of the 1960s or 70s. Today, there are mini nuclear power plants, and in fact, nuclear submarines have 3 nuclear generators on them. 3. How big is an American submarine? Well, by boat standards, they're reasonably large, particularly for ones that go under the water. But by a ship standard, they are not large. Why would you need so much power? Well, they generate a lot of power for a variety of reasons, but quiet generation of power underwater, propulsion underwater, will form a great part of that. So no engine noise, just nuclear power generation and a spinning prop. So there's that, plus all the equipment on board they've got to power. But they have 3 of them, and they can fit them in a very, very small space, a very confined space. And the waste rods, when they do become waste after, I think it's 50 years or something like that, yes, they do get stored. And yes, Australia does currently store quite a large number of those rods from various nuclear installations around the world. Now, we've sold the uranium to these countries so that they can power their nuclear generators, their nuclear power stations. And we take the yellow cake back, or whatever the whatever's left, the depleted uranium rods, we take them back and we bury them somewhere out in the bloody deepest hole underneath the Argyle diamond mine, or the ex-Argyle diamond mine, I think. So it's a huge business. We get paid a lot of money for it. Or we should. But our Australian government quite probably gives it away for free. Just like they give away our natural gas for free. Or basically for free. They use it as an incentive. Oh, if you give us this for that, then we'll... It means that those gas companies then go offshore, sell that gas, and it's all 100% profit after whatever it costs them to get it out of the ground. Don't have to share that with the people, certainly not the people. Don't have to share it with the government. No, that's yours, we bonus that to you. That's our natural resource, folks. We should be getting a slice of that. Okay, it might be a 15th of a cent per litre, but we send out billions of litres every year. Have you noticed LPG fuel is getting less and less available around the country? Why is that? Don't say it's climate change. We've got E85 fuel, made out of sugarcane. We've got petrol, we've got diesel, we've got, premium petrol, premium diesel. And yet, the cleanest of them all, the cleanest fuel we have in this country is LPG gas. LPG gas. That's the cleanest fuel. If you are a climate crier, you, instead of driving around in your lithium-ion powered Tesla mobile, you would be saving the world and doing everybody a great favor if you drove around in an LPG powered vehicle. And last time I was in Victoria, where LPG is still pretty prolific, you can still get it in a lot of places, particularly out in the bush. It was less than 90 cents a litre. Now, I think in Queensland, not that I've seen it, it's harder and harder to find up here. And I haven't been looking recently, but last time I was looking, it was about $1.19 up here. Even still, that's less than the $2.30 a litre I'm putting in this thing for fuel. So, for petrol. And less than whatever the diesel cost of the day is. Ultimately, it's better for the environment. It's ours. It comes straight out of our ground, our natural resource. A government-owned plant could produce it, and we could get it for base price and save the environment. Why aren't our government doing anything about that? Well, maybe they will, because if they're going to start considering nuclear power, which might be great, because at the moment, I suspect, now that I think about it, the only reason Dutton might be favouring nuclear power is because nuclear power is the only way they are going to be able to get enough base load power generation available to charge all these electric vehicles in a reasonable time, so that the charging points can be put up not 2, 3, 5 at a time, but 10, 20, 30 at a time. Because while you're not going to need 30 of them every day, you are going to need 30 of them running back to back at certain times of the year, when certain things happen, when large events happen in one city or another and a lot of people travel. That's when you wind up spending 3 hours waiting for every other numpty that bought a Tesla before you, or a BYD or whatever other electric piece of shit they've bought, to turn up, plug in, and piss off to top up their charge, which is, oh, well, we'll give you a quick charge for 20 minutes. That'll get you another 150 Ks up the road. That'll let somebody else behind you here get in too, and they can get on the road again. Yep, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. I've been driving a car for, well, let's say 40 years. And if I had to stop every 150 kilometres to put bloody fuel in it, I'd be getting a new car. The tests that have been done running a car from Melbourne to Sydney show quite clearly that it is more expensive to drive an electric car from Melbourne to Sydney, charging it along the way, than it is to drive a petrol or diesel powered vehicle. Plus, it's slower. Why? Because you've got to pull up 3 times and charge up while you're doing it. Most petrol and certainly diesel vehicles will travel between Melbourne and Sydney on 1 tank of fuel and still have a bit of room to run around in Sydney when you get there. God, my little Hyundai Tucson, which is a diesel, would get me to Newcastle, which is 750 odd k's from here, and that's towing a trailer. So, I don't know. It's just getting weird. We need nuclear power in our world, folks. These crazy people who have led our governments successively down the path of climate catastrophe need to be made to pay. And we need to fix the mess, and we need to fix it quickly, because with the amount of immigrants that we have coming in to this country on a monthly basis now, over 200,000 a month coming through, they are changing the colour of Australia, folks. Do you realise that? There aren't any white immigrants coming into this country. The people that are coming into this country are coming from Africa, they're coming from India, they're coming from Sri Lanka. They are not coming from America, from the UK, from any other Anglo or Westernized country. None of them. They are changing the fabric of Australia. They are changing the colour of Australia, which is probably not the best way to phrase what I'm trying to say here. But I think you get the idea. I've also been listening to some very interesting podcasts surrounding Islam. And I, in particular, heard a very disturbing story of a young man who was brought up in an Islamic home and was taught from as early as he can remember that all the Muslims in the world were playing a game to infiltrate Western society, and that there was going to be a big sign in the world one day, and that at that sign, when that sign came, all the Muslims in the world, wherever they were going to stand up and slaughter all the Christians because they can't live with Christians. And this is something that's been taught in Islamic schools, mosques, and more particularly in the homes of these children, for 30, 40 years. We're going to have to wait and see whether or not, I guess, that is true. We've certainly seen a lot of evidence of it. And I would say this about a lot of the global immigration that's going on at the moment, the lies and deceit being told at the American border. The reason you're not hearing too much about the US border at the moment is the US government has moved the border back into Mexico. Say what? They've arranged processing centers back off the Rio Grande, back away from the line. If you want to go in. And so these illegals with absolutely no background checks, no nothing, no anything, they just get a rubber stamp. And then they go to the border crossing point and walk through. That's how they're doing it now. And they're doing it to the tune of nearly $2 million a month. Now, what you're not seeing in those border crossings are women and children. You're seeing young fighting-aged men. Who do you send off to war? Do you send the women and children? No, you don't. You send out the fighting-age men. And I suspect that's what we're seeing. We're certainly seeing that in Australia from a number of African countries. Although I had an official tell me a little while ago that our department is very wise to those types, and they look for family groups specifically and target the family groups to bring out here rather than individuals. And I said, well, how do you know they're family groups? How do you? Oh, well, we've seen their documentation. Oh, right. So you believe it. Oh, well, we can only believe what we're shown. Yeah, great. So quite often following up on that, you find that the husband no longer lives with the wife. They basically got to the country, went their separate ways. So that's happening here. Indians, I don't think are coming over with nefarious ideas in mind. However, they are coming over with a shitload of cash. They're buying up property like nothing else. So are the Chinese. Chinese have gone mad here in the last 2 years and spent something around between $3.5 and $4 billion a year on property here in Australia, owning the property, not necessarily living in it, not necessarily doing anything else with it. So we're going to have a few issues here in the not too distant future, and power is going to be central to them. So I commend this to you. I'm going to try and chat with this young man who's put it all together, because that young face there is the face of the legalized nuclear power movement. And it's very interesting that it is a teenager who's fronted all this. So I've put in a request. They're trying to get 100,000 signatures. I think what we need is 500,000 signatures, because, well, at the end of the day, no amount of signatures is going to make the government look at anything. Government will just say, oh, yes, there's another petition, and we'll table that and then fucking ignore it, because that's what they do. However, this issue isn't going to go away. Our power isn't going to get any better until something like a nuclear power plant strategy is enabled. And I, for one, support it 100%. And if you're a climate crier, up your jacksie. I'm not going to listen to your bullshit anymore. And if you're too stupid to understand that it is bullshit, then what are you doing watching this program? Because nobody cares. We gave up caring some years ago. We're sad for you, but we gave up caring some years ago. Oh, I'm being a bitch tonight, aren't I? All right, I think I've covered just about everything. Oh, no, there was one last thing I wanted to cover up. Okay, so I've called this guy Meat Man. Meat, I'm not sure if you're aware, is a threat to the world. A serious, serious threat to the world. And we are seeing now a concerted effort to, I think, bring on a famine, a global famine. The bird flu bullshit that's going on currently in Victoria and New South Wales. the bird flu bullshit. Just want to say that, all right? Just that. Just that. I ain't afraid of no hoax. It is a hoax. It is bullshit. On so many levels. However, they're going to make it look very believable. They're going to make it look scary. And very shortly, I have no doubt there'll be a newsreader somewhere in Australia with a story that someone coughed and a feather popped out their ass, insinuating that the bird flu has crossed species, and now humans who contact birds are in danger of growing plumage in their nether parts. I'm serious. And they'll expect us to believe it. And you want to know the sad part? The really sad part about it for me is that many of them will. Because, as I keep saying, unfortunately, not all the dickheads are on the roads.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!